to stay silent in all the chaos. So I was texting with my friend today, and she said that, and I just thought it was so beautiful to stay silent in the chaos. And I thought I would speak about that. And what she was meaning in regards, like she was saying in regards to the world is going crazy at the moment, and she just feels like she has to stay silent in all the chaos. Which maybe it is going crazy. It's very unknown. I mean, firstly, is there a world out there? We have it in our imaginations that there's a world out there, but do we actually know there's a world out there? You could do a Byron Katie. Is that true? Is there a world out there? There is no world out there. The flip around. There is no world out there. So if we assume that there is a world out there and everything we read, like in the news and in society, then I would say that, yeah, society is kind of losing it. But I kind of also don't see life like that, really. I see my life more like everything that we're seeing is being produced by our brains. So everything that we're experiencing is appearing from our brains, like we can't get outside of our brains. And I'm only using the word brain because that's something we can all relate to. I mean, like we're looking through this system, that we're looking through this body which has 6 senses. If we say thinking is the 6th sense, but we could say there's like 10 senses. But let's just keep it simple and say we're looking through the world through these 6 senses. And so everything that we experience is our sense. So if we sense evil in the world, we're not actually feeling an evil out there. We're feeling an evil in us, in this body-mind mechanism. So if you pick up somebody else's energy, for example, it's all happening in your own brain. It doesn't mean that you're not picking up someone's energy, but them, their body, their energy is appearing in your perception from consciousness's point of view, and then from the human point of view through the senses. So your senses are picking up it in a particular way. So when I say the world's going crazy, it always feels a little weird to me because I've reconditioned myself so much that it's hard for me to see this thing called world or the thing called society. I mean, I can, but it's like, what is society but your thoughts, your ideas, your reactions to it, your reading of the news. Imagine if there was no news or social media. Anyway, she was saying that she has to stay silent in it. I thought that was beautiful. It's staying silent in all the chaos. That's kind of happening now. That's happening all the time. Like whether we define it as chaos or not is dependent on the way our brains think or the way these bodies think. But there's all these different things happening. There's sights, there's sounds, there's people, there's experiences, there's energies, there's colours. There's so much happening, and staying silent in that. And what does that mean? Most people would take that as an activity. I've got to stay silent, I've got to do something. But when you really go deep into yourself, you realise that who you are is silence. Your essence is silence. It's already here. Most of the time, people are cut off from that, and they're just involved in their story of them and involved in what's happening. And then that becomes increasingly overwhelming. And that becomes increasingly overwhelming for people, because they forget that part of their self is in freedom now, is in stillness now. And from this place of stillness, nothing matters. Your life doesn't matter. The friends don't matter. The problems don't matter. They don't even exist. Your animals, your children, your environment, none of that exists. From the place of silence, all of that is stories in a fairyland, in a made-up reality. From the perspective of silence, like all there is what's happening. Is this watching? And this watching is in love with itself. Not as an activity, not as I love you, he loves me, she loves me. As itself. It's in love watching itself. There's nothing more that it wants than this love. And this silence, this consciousness, this watching, whatever you want to call it, the mystery, no thing, isn't separate from everything that's happening. It's the walls, it's the curtains, it's the bed, it's the pajamas, it's the window, it's my voice. It's everything that's happening. It's all that's ever wanted. And that silence is not a thing. It's not a perspective, it's not a thought, it's not a narration, it's not an idea, it's not an achievement, it's not a colour, it's not a feeling. It's no thing and all things. It's not your past, it's not your future. The silence, the consciousness is here already. It's this childlike awakeness, this awe at itself. And its age, it's without age. It's not 90 years old or 1 year old. It's timeless. And nothing matters there. Doesn't matter if you die, doesn't matter if your friends die, doesn't matter if the world implodes of Coronation Street. You're not allowed to say it on YouTube. Coronation Street. Coronation Street. Nothing matters. There's nothing to get. It doesn't want to be successful. It doesn't want a job. It doesn't want a partner or not a partner. It doesn't want anything. Doesn't want to do something, doesn't want to not do something. It's just watching. It's just free. It doesn't need you to be psychologically better. It doesn't need you to be psychologically free. Your karmas and your psychology can distract from this, but it doesn't need that. Like, karmas and psychology are part of these bodies. It's part of what happens. Like, it's my karma and my psychology that, you know, I sit here so comfortably in my pajamas. Like, it's part of the way that this thing has been conditioned and set up, and its belief systems. But that is karma. We all have our karma. Everybody has their karma. And this subject can improve karma, can improve your dynamics, but that's not the goal of it. The goal of it is seeing the freedom beyond your karma, beyond the world, beyond the daydream of you. So you could imagine it like this. Just let me have a bit of my Jack Daniels and Coke. That's a joke. I hate whiskey. Whiskey. Although gin is worse. Gin is terrible. Now vodka and orange. Now we're talking. Vodka and orange, I'm all right with. I'm down with. Anyway. What are we talking about? Lisa, what were you talking about? We were just about to do the Google goggles, although it's not called Google goggles anymore, I don't think. Originally, when I first started giving this analogy, because I've been teaching for so long, I look like I'm only about, 40, but I'm actually like 98. I've been talking about this for over 60 years now. Anyway, originally, when I first started talking about this, in the 2010s, the beginning of 2010s, I used to use Google goggles. Like, they had these, my friend at the time had these goggles, these Google goggles, and then you put your phone in there and it created like a virtual reality, and you could be like in a, you could be in like a roller coaster. It was really amazing. So you put your phone in the front pit and then you put these like goggles on your head. But now there is way more advanced things than that. There is like full virtual reality sets that you can have in your own home. Anyway, so to get to my point, if you put on a virtual reality headset, I suppose I should start telling the story about the cow, shouldn't I? Okay, here we go. For those that have listened to me for quite a few years, you might have heard this story now. You can now go and make yourself a cup of tea or go for a pee break. But for those of you new, you're going to be absolutely amazed by this incredibly delicious story about a cow and a fox. So me and my partner in Berlin, name dropping the cities here, in Berlin, how exotic, Berlin. We went to this is back when, you know, we could travel, back all those years ago when you could travel and go to different places. Now for the last like 60 years, we've all had to stay at home. Anyway, we went to this, back when we could travel, we went to this virtual reality place where you put on a backpack and a headset, and then you sort of went into this warehouse and you had to like fix this puzzle that was set in the future, and everyone was in different rooms, and it was set up so you never walked into a wall, so it was like programmed to the room. And then your partner, whoever else was in your game with you, were in different rooms, but you were all in this like collective virtual reality together, and you could all hear each other. But I was just in there with one other person, and I'm a little bit, I have vertigo and I can get dizzy very easily. And I was a little bit cautious about putting on the headset and a little bit concerned that I was going to throw up. So when I did it, I just was like trying to be really gentle. And as soon as you get in there, you had to pick an animal that you were. And I think that my partner picked a fox, which is, you know, something I would like to have picked. But unfortunately, because I got confused, I ended up the cow. A very nice cow with trotters in a spacesuit. And he was a fox that was really cool, which I would have liked to have been. And anyway, we played this game in the future. It was like we were on a spaceship and we had to fix all these puzzles. So that's it. That you could say it's a bit like that with consciousness, except consciousness is the virtual world as well. But you could say it's like consciousness has put on a virtual reality backpack and headset and is looking through that. And so for me, in my world, when I played that game, I looked through the virtual reality set and I was a cow with these hoofs. And I could only see that I was a cow when I looked in the mirror. The rest of the time it was just like hoofs, which was quite complicated when there were delicate things to do on the spaceship, but it worked. And that's exactly what life has done. And what we believe is that when we're waking up, we get so fixated on the character in the dream that we believe the character in the dream wakes up. But so when I went in there, my cow was conditioned a certain way to behave a certain way and to respond a certain way and did certain things. And when I went in there and watched through the cow, my consciousness is not affected by the cow and the cow's conditioning. My consciousness is pure. My consciousness is seeing everything. But imagine if, like, through 100 years of playing this game of pretending to be a cow, I suddenly forgot that I was Lisa watching the cow, and I suddenly began to believe that I was the cow. And then the cow, in its waking up story, believes I've got to work on myself to fix myself, but actually it's nothing to do with the cow and the cow's life in time. It's just there's been this attachment to the cow. So all the practices the cow does, that's not the point of it, because your watching is still there. Like, I'm Lisa watching the cow, like reconditioning myself as the cow doesn't affect my consciousness that's watching through this virtual reality headset. I know a lot of minds are like, yes, it does, it could do, because we're so convinced that the character is going to arrive at something and do something to get itself enlightened. But So you can see in that virtual reality world, like Lisa is watching the cow, then she begins to get hypnotized by being the cow because she does it for so long. She begins to believe she is the cow. And then in the waking up process, the cow, the Lisa identified with the cow, the story of the cow begins to manifest as the cow looking everywhere for this and doing all these practices, because it's influenced by the consciousness that's watching, obviously. And the cow is like running around, like looking for itself, doing hum, ba 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 ba, hum, 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 smoking, doing incense and ding, 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 and all these sorts of things, and stretching itself. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure that will improve the cow's life and settle the cow down. Like, so the cow becomes less busy. It sort of seeks less. It searches less. At some point, grace just takes in, and then Lisa, as the watcher, remembers, oh yeah, I'm watching the cow. I'm Lisa in this other reality watching the cow. That's not quite what happens with consciousness. It's not verbal, but there is this recognition, this moving back to seeing that there has always been a watching here that is not identified with the cow. In your cases, you're not cows, you're characters. So we get into this dance of believing it's the karma of the person that's got to be fixed, and it's the person that's got to get somewhere. But who? Who are you? You're so convinced that you're the character, you keep looking in the character at the character's behavior, which is good. It's always good to clean your cage as the character. It's always a well thought out plan to make yourself more nice for your neighbors. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to consciousness. Consciousness is watching no matter what the cow does. Consciousness is free no matter what. It's just what happens when identified is it feels like the cow is conscious. It feels like it's the cow that is suffering, the cow that is having a life. Whereas there's never been a cow having a life. The cow has always been a character that's manifesting. And the cow's character is beyond the cow's control. It's a program. So when I put that on, I have this program of a cow. And then obviously Lisa in this reality affects it, but we have to then drop that analogy. So in this dream, you are programmed, and every one of you is divine. But it seems to be, it's like the programming is on spontaneous creation. So it's not like you're programmed and we know what the story is going to be. It's like we're programmed in a certain way, and then life is like, and then see what happens. So you're set up to respond in certain ways, but you're also set up to evolve. So just like algorithms, if you create an algorithm, you don't know what the outcome is going to be. You can create an algorithm that's like to draw a picture, and you give it certain things that it can do and certain possibilities, and then you give it the ability to evolve, which is what we're currently doing at the moment. And then we don't know what the outcome is going to be, and that's exactly what our lives are like. But they're not ours. So you're not guilty. You're not responsible for anything. You are not in control of your life. Like, who is in control of your life? Guilt and blame seem to be big attachments for people. Shame, pride, big attachments. There's nothing wrong with the feeling, but that's not true. You're not guilty. I'm not guilty. He's not guilty. She's not guilty. He's not right. She's not right. They're not right. There is nothing that's right or wrong or good or bad. It's simply happening, which is so radical, because that means that if there's nobody truly guilty, like we can say, oh, I'm guilty if I crash my car into this person and I should go to prison or not go to prison, whatever. But there's nobody that's guilty, which means that everything is free. That means there's no hatred. Sometimes people ask me, what definitely changes. So my teacher, Roger and Ramesh, would say that it's blame, guilt, shame, pride. I still have those feelings, but I would say that they're very thin in comparison to what they used to be, and they move through really quickly. And I kind of feel like it's appropriate to have them in society. But one thing that I definitely don't have is hatred. Like, no, like, how can we hate something? Like, I can be like, oh, I hate it, as in a joke. Like the other day, yesterday, Khaleesi had a humongous tick that fell off her, and it was like, ugh. And me and my partner were imagining it having babies and all that, and I was like, ugh, it's disgusting. But I really don't hate, and I can get angry with people as well, like lose my temper. But it doesn't mean that I hate. Like, I just don't feel that anymore. Like, who is to blame? Even if someone did the worst things. Who is there to blame? Who is guilty? There is only watching happening. That's all that's ever happening, is watching. And then this dance of forms and thoughts and ideas and past and future float in. But they're not real, they're not your reality. Your reality is this silence, is this stillness, is this immenseness. So sitting on the edge of the precipice. Precipice. Nice.